Hey, Allison, look, if a Democrat's going to be president in 2021, they probably have to win Michigan. And if they're going to win Michigan, they probably have to win here in Macomb County. This is the home of the so-called Reagan Democrat. It has always been a swing county in this state, when for President Obama, then for President Trump. The voters I talked to here have almost an allergy to all things 2016. There is a sense, even after the Mueller report, or the Mueller hearing yesterday, I should say, that they don't want to keep talking about Russian interference in 2016. They don't want to keep relitigating Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. They want to start looking ahead to 2020. So what does that mean in terms of Congress? Yes, they still want to see the Democratic-controlled House continue to investigate this president, but no, they don't necessarily think impeachment is the right course of action, either because it's politically untenable, it won't get done in the Senate, or because they just feel like it's a waste of energy at this point, that we ought to be focusing, they say as Democrats, on 2020 and on the 2020 candidates. And to that end, they don't want to hear the candidates out and about talking about Donald Trump as much as they want to hear what their plans are, what they can do, the focus on the same bread and butter issues that helped win seats in the governor's mansion here in Michigan in 2018. As to the debate next week, this was really interesting too. I expected to hear from Democrats that they don't want to hear the candidates sniping at each other, that they don't want to hear that kind of fighting, but that's not what I found. In fact, a lot of these voters I talked to here today said they do want to see the candidates start to contrast with each other, to be a little bit more aggressive, and to shake it up. Why? They are tired of a 24-candidate field. They think it's time for Democrats to get serious about narrowing things down, start again looking ahead to 2020 and that all-important question, who can defeat Donald Trump? They think some of those answers are going to come on the debate stage here in Michigan next week. Allison?
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.